Northumbrian dirt. Veins choked with Anglo-Saxon wrath and viper's venom. Revenge was swift. His sons laid waste to the British Isles, splintering the land and slaughtering all who opposed them. The Viking horde swept west, an insatiable force that brought Alfred the Great to his knees. But some men can only be pushed so far. The year is now 878 AD, whilst Norsemen settle land they once pillaged. Alfred of Wessex seeks to unite the Isles under one banner. But here stand a new wave of the ambitious and hungry, ready to stake their claim to Britannia. Kings will rise. One will rule.
What is going on, everybody, and welcome back. Once again, my name is Jordan, also known as JmonsterTW. I want to thank you guys for joining me for another replay battle. Today I've got a 3 versus 3 on Thrones of Britannia. This is the first game of Thrones of Britannia that I've covered on my channel, and probably my 3rd game ever, so be gentle with me, I'm still learning. But in any case, let's take a look at the army comps, and then finally we can jump into the replay itself. I hope you guys enjoy it. The first army we're going to look at today is that of the Scots. I'm not entirely sure who's commanding it. We'll see at the end of the video in the post-battles credits. But they have brought a couple units of Wolfhounds, which is I'm not really familiar with. Although, to be fair, this is like my 3rd battle ever, so I'm not really familiar with most of the factions and units in the game. But I assume that they function fairly similarly to War Dogs in Rome 1, in that they are useful for flanking or causing fear, or running down lightly armored units such as archers. So in a siege battle, not really too sure what kind of use this player is going to get out of them, but I suppose we'll see. Here we get 1, 2, 3 units of Royal Cavalry. All of whom are a very, very strong elite melee cavalry unit, which means that I'm pretty sure they work similarly to how they do in Reforged, in that they're very strong against cavalry, but you probably don't want to leave them for too long in close quarters against infantry. Over here we have the Royal Followers, which is the general's bodyguard for this particular battle, and I'm not really sure what the general even looks like, to be perfectly honest. Maybe it's the guy here with like this rounded kind of shield where everyone else has like square shields. That kind of makes sense in my mind. But in any case, I also brought a couple units of Highland Levy archers, very, very low on skirmishers for this. It really seems to, given the amount of cavalry that they have, that the Scottish player intends to try and hold the walls as best they can with their infantry, but to really be aggressive and fight a lot outside the walls with their cavalry. They've also got a couple units here of the Sword Warriors, who I don't really know too much about their quality, but I wasn't terribly impressed with them in this battle. They did alright, but I guess maybe that's sort of, I'm not entirely sure what the Scottish faction strength is, but it definitely does not seem to be their infantry. Here we got 1, 2, 3 units of Alban Levy Spearmen, very much a holding force here from the Scottish. And I think that just about does it for their army. It's fairly small. I imagine they spent quite a lot on the cavalry units, so hopefully they get a lot of use out of them. Moving on to my other ally, this is the forces of Wales, being commanded by, again, I don't know, I'm just used to saying that. He's got a unit here of the Toilu Elite Melee Cavalry, which is where his general's bodyguard is going to be hanging out. And naturally, as the Welsh player is going to have a ton of bowmen and spearmen. So we got 2 units here of a longbowmen. These are retinue bow infantry. I don't really know exactly what that signifies, but he's got a very, very large force of spears over here. Got 1 unit of Toilu Spear Guard, a 2nd unit here, actually a couple companies, I believe, of more longbowmen. Also got another unit of the Toilu Spear Guard. Then we get some of the Valley Mailed Spearmen. So yeah, really gone hard on the spears for this particular battle, and I think that's kind of the faction strength of this particular kingdom. There are 2 Welsh kingdoms. The other one is I can't remember the name, honestly, but they have some pretty decent. I think they're a little bit more melee focused. They don't get as many bonuses to their bows, but I could be wrong with that. In any case, another unit here of the Toilu Spear Guard, and then finally another unit of the Longbowmen. So now moving on to the third and final defending army, this one being commanded by, I know who this is. This is yours truly. I've got 5 units of Anglian Marauders, who I've mostly brought for the purposes of hacking down some of our more armored foes. We do have Wessex on the field, which I believe has a fairly well-armored roster, in addition to another East Anglian player, so we're definitely going to get a lot of use out of these guys in this battle. So again, 5 units there of the Anglian Marauders, and I think I've got a little bit of experience chevrons on, I believe, 2 of them. I've also got 4 units of the Danelaw Male Archers. One of them I have held in reserve in the center here to guard this kind of central path straight to our town square. Obviously, we don't want to lose that very easily, and I'm going to be backing that barricade up with one unit of my 2 units of Berserkers. Now, from what I understand, and from what I've seen, Berserkers are horrendously overpowered in Thrones of Britannia multiplayer, so I really tried to limit myself to them, but I also wanted to try them out for myself, instead of having someone use them against me and use them to brutalize me. So I've got a couple units here of the Berserkers, each one of them with a single experience chevron. I tried to restrain myself a lot. I could have brought way more than 2, which I think is probably one of the big problems with the factions that can bring Berserkers. But in any case, I also have 1 unit of Warlord's Companions, which is a solid General's Bodyguard unit. This is the lower tier unit. I believe there is a Huskarl unit with the 2-handed axes on them, but given how many bowman units are on the field today, we do have another Welsh player on the attacking side. I thought it was probably more prudent to bring a unit with a shield block chance. Now I've got another 2 companies over here of my Anglian Marauders, and the rest of my bowmen are going to be hanging out on the walls. Now I believe I have 1 more unit of Berserkers, not entirely sure where they are right now, but I'm sure we'll get I'm sure we'll find them once we get into the battlefield. Never mind, they're both right here in the center. So that does it for the defending armies. Let's go ahead and see what the attackers have brought to the battle today. Now, the first attacking army we're going to look at is the forces of Wessex. Again, I'm so used to saying being commanded by, but it really throws me that I can't see the player names in this. This is Wessex, and he's brought a ton of really elite infantry. Now, his focus for his comp was all about his lead infantry. So we got the some tier 3 male thanes here. Also got a royal bodyguard, which is of course going to be guarding their general. Some royal thanes here as well. Another elite infantry unit, more royal thanes, a ton more royal thanes, and another unit of them over here that's going to be commanding one of the siege towers. And then we've got, I believe, 4 or 5 units of select feared archers, which are all right. I don't really know the specializations, but from what I've seen of the Wessex roster, they really specialize in a solid mix of strong infantry units. And if we're kind of looking at the Anglo-Saxons more or less around the time period, they are really going to focus a lot on their heavy infantry. And infantry in this is really important, so that's a great kind of specialization to have in Thrones of Britannia. But yeah, in any case, I think there's 1 unit that kind of got... Yeah, see, what happened when we were playing this game was that someone started it early, which is always a problem in the Attila engine. You know, if someone wants to kind of surprise you and throw you for a bit of a loop, they can start the game a little bit early. You only got about 60 seconds or so to set yourself up. And I think that was kind of not to the benefit of this particular attacking army. I think it was a problem for the Welsh player as well, which is why he's got a couple units of retinue longbows, or I want to call them retinue longbows. Yeah, I'm going to call them that for expediency's sake. Wow, I can English today. He got them left out there as well, and I think that's the same thing that happened with the Royal Thanes. So they're kind of isolated, and that's going to be a really big problem, especially with all of that Scottish cavalry lurking around. Moving on now to the second attacking army, we have another force from Wales. Not entirely sure which kingdom this is. I think it's like Gwynedd or something like that. That kind of makes sense to me. Or like Cymru. In any case, he's got a ton of longbowmen. He's really invested a lot of money into them. Look at that. Gold chevrons on these guys right here. More longbowmen, yet more longbowmen, and more longbowmen. So we've got 5 or 6 units of those longbows. Really, really scary, especially for my outnumbered Danelaw troops out there on the walls. So we've got some Welsh mailed swordsmen. Another unit here of the Welsh mailed swordsmen. You really seem to strike a fine balance between elite bowmen and his infantry unit. So Welsh mailed swordsman here again with the gold chevron. Got some Toilu spear guard, silver chevrons, more Toilu spear guard who are manning this ram with double gold chevrons, and royal Toilu, which I think is where the general's gonna be hanging out. Yes, indeed, with triple gold chevrons. And some of those longbowmen also have chevrons as well. Moving on to the third and final now attacking army, we have the West Anglian faction. And he's going to be bringing a ton of infantry as well. He's got not a similar army comp to mine. I don't really have any cavalry, but he does have a lot of the same units naturally, given that he has the same faction. Got some Danelaw male swordsmen here, a lot of Danelaw male swordsmen, some Anglian marauders. They're going to be manning this this siege tower right here. Some more Anglian marauders, yet more Anglian marauders. Almost enough Anglian marauders to match my own. And he's got some warlord companions, yet more Danelaw mailed swordsmen, and I think he's got bunch of the Danelaw mailed archers as well, to the tune of about 3 or 4 units of them. Also got a couple companies of the Danelaw mailed horsemen. Now, they do have more money than us, as you would expect from the attackers, so yeah, he was able to bring a lot more stuff. Definitely enough units here to match my own. So this is going to be a tough fight for us, so hopefully the Welsh player is going to be able to stand strong. But in any case, let's go ahead, let's get into the replay. Hope you guys enjoy it. Now, the battle is going to begin with a very, very aggressive push by the Welsh in the center. His allies are going to be a little bit more cautious. West Sayaxa is just going to kind of hang out there on the left flank for a little bit. He's going to push forward as well, but not quite as aggressively as the Welsh. And over there, the West Anglians are going to kind of take their time as well. That's going to be a little bit more of a prolonged skirmish phase, which probably isn't the greatest idea when you're facing down another Welsh player. So as the Welsh are moving in, I am actually managing to do a fair amount of damage to them. You can see one of these units here already beginning to break because of some focus fire, but the Welsh player is going to focus his remaining 5 units of bowmen on my one poor beleaguered unit of Danelaw mailed archers, which is a good idea to do when you have this many skirmishers. You can destroy a unit so quickly, but when they are protected by a wall like this, it is going to give me a little bit more time, and so I'm going to be able to return fire. And you can see another unit of his longbowmen already taking some pretty severe casualties and on the verge of breaking as well. So we're kind of going tit for tat at this point, but eventually the Welsh range supremacy will, of course, naturally begin to take its toll, and my archers are going to be forced to flee. Over on this side, the Scottish are firing down into their hated enemies as they advance on these select fear archers here, coming under some pretty heavy fire by those Alban, I think they're Alban Levy bowmen or something like that, Alban Levy spearmen. Yeah, they're Levy bowmen in any case, and they're doing a fair amount of damage to some of these feared archers who are pretty heavily armored. You have to admit they got a nice little coat of mail on them right there. But eventually, the sheer numbers of the attacking bowmen is going to be enough to, I think, drive a Scottish player from the wall. So let's pop back and over to the Anglian side of things. You can see that it's really a much more cautious, kind of measured advance. Got some Danelaw mailed archers there that are keeping pace with the West Anglian siege equipment, so they're able to provide a little bit of covering fire as these units move in. And it looks like the Welsh are really paying a lot of attention to these siege towers, which honestly, when you're not using fire arrows, is probably not a good idea. Now, there's a lot of things here for the Welsh player to have to micro, so it is a forgivable mistake, but definitely not a good use of his time by any means. It was actually a really, really nice advance by the East Anglian player. Wow, like my brain EXE just stopped for a moment there. Yeah, so the Danelaw mail archers in the center supporting siege equipment as they move forward, and some of the Welsh forces are actually beginning to flee now, and some of the elite units here, like the Toilet Spear Guard, are coming under pretty heavy fire on the battlements. So let's go ahead and let's slow things down just a wee bit, just so we don't miss anything. Now, over in the center, my force is coming under heavy fire, and I decide that now is the moment to kind of break and run for it. Now, I could have timed this a little bit better. What you probably want to try and do is time it so that you're in between volleys when you begin to disengage, but I actually kind of disengage right in the middle of a volley, so that's definitely a big oopsie on my part, and I am going to pay for it. You can see Danelaw mail archers here, quite a lot of them died while trying to escape the tender mercies of the Welsh longbowmen. I'm going to use one unit here to form kind of a rear guard. And they're going to be firing, unfortunately they're firing at the siege tower, which is really not the smartest thing that they could be doing right now. But I was going to leave them behind to try and exact a little bit of a toll from the Welsh forces as they begin to move forward. And I was kind of hoping that that small unit would escape attention, but it is definitely not at this point. You can see now all the Welsh bowmen are beginning to fire at them, and my poor Danelaw mail archers are going to take that right on the chin, quite literally and figuratively. That one guy just got smacked right in the face. Look at him. And they're going to begin to rout pretty quickly here, which is unfortunate for them. But I do manage to escape with a fair amount of health left on a couple of units here of my Danelaw mail archer. So this one is still at full strength. I still have another unit in reserve in the center, and this one here is about at half strength. So moving on over to the Scottish side of things. Things are really kicking off, and just listen to that soundtrack. I really love what CA has done with the soundtrack here. It has been quite fantastic. And now the Royal Thanes over the wall, and they're going to be into the Highland Levy archers. Not great for the Scottish player to let these very light bowmen get caught out, and they really did pretty well. I mean, I have to say they were still managing to stay on the walls for a very long period of time, and a lot of feared archers really felt their wrath. But let's pop on over here, and it looks like that poor unit of Royal Thanes has been caught out by a full commitment, in fact, of all 4 units of Scottish Cav. But honestly, there's better ways, I think, to use their cavalry than this. You could have brought some of them out, at least one of the units out, maybe even 2 of them, and charged into the rear of these Royal Thanes, and that would have routed them nearly immediately, and certainly would have prevented some of the Scottish cavalry from suffering as many casualties as they seem to be right now. I mean, there's at least all of these units have taken damage so far, which is, I think, in my opinion, a little bit unnecessary. Let's move back on over to the attacking East Anglian side of things. Damn, it is really kicking off in a great way. Let's turn off the UI there and just enjoy this glorious spectacle. Actually, hold on. Let's pop it into full speed. Oops. There we go. More and more of those East Anglian forces pouring onto the walls, and they are being met with with a wall of steel and nerve. That is the men of Wales. See some more reinforcements coming in the form of some Anglian raiders. I've now moved up to try and support my ally a little bit. I'm actually bringing over a company of my Danelaw archers as well. My full company of my Danelaw archers. I've still got some units here in reserve, another company of the Anglian marauders. Yeah, moving in pretty well fully with my own Anglian marauders to try and drive back the East Anglians. Because see, they've really managed to break through the shield wall of the Toilet Spear Guard here. Another company moving in as well to try and pick up the slack. But I've got this one unit. This is kind of some of the strange pathfinding that you can expect to see in Thrones of Britannia. It is a good game, from what I've seen. It plays a lot like Shogun 2, but there are some oddities like this, which I really don't understand why this happened. I actually told these units to attack the units that were coming off the siege towers, but for some reason they kind of strung themselves out in a weird way, and yeah, it was just not great for us. But moving on over to this the siege tower here. Anglian marauders pouring in, but they are being met by some of the Valley Mailed Spearmen. They seem to be doing a lot better, surprisingly enough, than the Toilet Spear Guard, who I think are the same tier as them. Yeah, indeed. Both tier 3 spear units, but the Anglian marauders are really running into some difficulties here, and I think that the Welsh player is going to have this pretty well in control for the rest of the battle. So let's move on over to the Scottish side of things. Ooh, this is getting real fun. More and more of the men of Wessex pouring over that wall. Sword warriors meeting them with full fury, but it seems like the Anglians are not the Anglians. The English here are going to be able to pull out a victory. Sword warriors having to fight uphill now against the Royal Thanes, who have a solid foothold on the battlements. Scottish player pouring more and more reinforcements in, but it seems like some of the Royal Thanes have actually moved down to flank a lot of these Scottish sword warriors as well. So the Scottish player really running into some severe difficulties. Luckily, they do have a little bit of support here in the form of these longbowmen. It looks like the men of Wessex were actually driven from the battlements over here, and I think that was probably the company that managed to slip in behind the Scottish lines. We also got a little bit of breaking here. The Alban Spear Levy proving that, yeah, those militiamen are not really a match for the Wessex heavy infantry. It looks like a lot of these feared archers seem to be pulling out of position, and I think that might be because of all the Scottish cavalry over here. So looking at this fight here between the Royal Thanes and the Scottish cavalry, I mean, obviously they're winning, but the Scottish cavalry is taking way more damage than I think was really necessary in this kind of fight. Again, coming in from behind really saves you a lot of time and a lot of lives. And these units could potentially be running down some of these Wessex archers already, so it's a real shame to see the Scottish player get bogged down like that. We've got some wolfhounds here that are going to be, I think, going out. Yeah, they're going to be going for the gatehouse, so they're going to be moving out to be a problem for some of the Wessex archers, which is good to see. I mean, that seems to be the sort of thing that they're good at. And it looks like some of them have died for some. I'm not really understanding why that would be, but you know, maybe they suffered a heart attack or something. The battle's just too exciting for them, I guess. Royal Thanes here driving back the sword warriors, really establishing a solid foothold on the Scottish side of things. So that's really looking grim for the Scots over on that end. But over in the center, I'm being a lot more passive. I kind of want to be a bit more careful here. I've still got some reserves, and I've got all these areas locked down, but I really can't match the English and the Welsh in terms of numbers, so I have to be a little bit more defensive here. As much as it pains me to kind of camp a little bit, I really don't have a lot of choice in this matter. But over here, Welsh mailed swordsmen, a lot of the Welsh forces managing to get their way through the gatehouse, taking some fairly substantial casualties from the oil, which is, again, one of the other things, it's a minor complaint, but it is something that I noticed, is that I had no units here to man this gatehouse, and yet the oil was still pouring down. So I'm able to inflict casualties on my opponents as they move into the gatehouse, which is an important space that you really have to move through in a siege, without actually having a presence on the walls, which I thought was a little bit silly. But in any case, Welsh well and truly inside the walls now, kind of poised to overrun my center. So I saw these troops coming in, so I pulled out one of my units of Anglian marauders, and now I'm going to pop these guys into a bit of a shield wall formation here in anticipation of an arrow storm on the part of the Welsh bowmen still outside the walls. But let's move on over now to the East Anglian side of things, and it looks like East Anglia has really been kind of cleaned up here. Now, they do still have some more reinforcements pouring over the walls here, but they're running into basically into a death trap. Now, it says that things are even for the time being, and they're going to be able to hold up a lot of our reinforcements for quite some time, which is going to allow an opportunity for the Welsh to potentially overrun our lines. Now, this right here, Let's get right down and dirty with it, too. That's going to be beautiful. But this area right here is very much the linchpin of our defense. We have East Anglia locked down. We can beat them. It's just a matter of being able to hold off the Welsh and potentially also the English as well for an extended period of time. And it looks like East Anglia has one more trick up their sleeve. They're going to be taking their 2 units here of the Danelaw Mailed Horsemen and charging them through this gatehouse, which they now control. So no longer any need to worry about the oil. Alongside, looks like some of the Wessex men who are coming in as well to back up the Welsh. So this is a really big, important part of the battle that we're going to have to focus a lot on. So this unit of Anglian Marauders is really all that's standing between us and potentially complete disaster right now. So looks like my ally here kind of recognized this and is moving forward with a fresh company here and a nearly full strength unit of Toyley Spear Guard, which is going to be absolutely essential. But let's take a quick jaunt over to the Scottish side of things, where it looks like they've managed to pull it back a little bit, which is very surprising. And I think that's because Wessex basically pulled out all support because I think they're worried about the Scottish cavalry that's about to come thundering down on their flanks. Yeah, so Scotland has now managed to pull this out, and that is going to be a big boon for us. Now, there's a lot of Wessex infantry over here that's going to have to deal with the Scots potentially before they can move in and help their allies, so they're not going to have as much of a concentration of force here. Now, but moving back over to this really important part of the battle, Danelaw Mailed Horsemen being an absolute pain, managing to scoot around my beleaguered unit of Anglian Marauders, pushing their way through. Now, I'm really worried at this point that this unit is going to rout, but they're going to be able to get a nice hammer and anvil into the rear of my Anglian Marauders to go ahead and put things on full speed, so we can really enjoy it and get a sense of the weight of cavalry, which I have to say is pretty satisfying in Thrones of Britannia. It's not absolutely insane like it is in Warhammer, where people go like flying for days and that sort of thing, but it is definitely satisfying, especially when you manage to get these hammer and anvil strikes. Now, this is a great move on the part of East Anglia, and it does really take a nice bite out of my Anglian Marauders. I lost about 20 or so men on that charge, but now that the Toyley Spear Guard are nearby, we're going to be able to surround these isolated Danelaw Mailed Horsemen. They're going to be able to break pretty quickly, actually, after taking some really severe casualties. Another company over here, I think, is going to be panicked and begin to run as well. So, actually, no, there it is, but they're going to be destroyed quite quickly as well. You can see they're already beginning to waver, and there's really nowhere left for them to go except through my forces, so they're going to take some more casualties on the escape. And I think that unit just broke there as well, and they're actually going to shatter. Yeah, one's broken and one is shattered, so the East Anglian Horsemen have now been swiftly dealt with, mostly thanks to my ally moving in those Toyley Spear Guard at a very opportune moment. These guys could, if there wasn't kind of a stopgap here, they could have escaped and they could have done some damage to, say, my Danelaw Mailed Archers, for example, who actually have kind of been shot to death, but that's because they've been exchanging fire. Oh, wow, just killing myself today. Exchanging fire with these Danelaw Mailed Archers, and they did okay. I think one of the companies really took some serious damage, but they were severely outnumbered, so yeah, it's about as well as they could do. Bringing in now some more Anglian Marauders, because I do not want this section of the line to break. Now, we have managed to repel the Horsemen, which is a big boon for us, but there's so much more of the attacking infantry yet to come. Look at this. A lot of infantry already on their way, but what I'm really curious about is where that Scottish cavalry is at this point. Now, looks like maybe one company of the Scottish cavalry. No, actually, they're all still here, but they've really been bogged down for an extended period of time. Like, this is very late in the battle. This is nearly halfway through, and they've really just been kind of kept in place by this one unit of Royal Thanes. So again, I've said it like 3 times now throughout this battle. If you can have an opportunity to hammer an anvil and to break your enemies, then go ahead and do it. But now, finally, these Royal Thanes are going to be able to break, and the Scottish cavalry is going to be freed up for some decisive action. And speaking of the Scottish, the rest of their infantry has managed to clean up all the remains of the men of Wessex inside of the walls. Now they're going to be moving forward with their Highland Levy archers with a little bit of support here from the Welsh longbowmen, and begin to harass the other end of the Welsh contingent. And I think at this point is where I start to move forward with some of my own infantry. Actually, no, we're not quite at that point yet. So let's pop back on over to this side of things. We're going to start to put things into full speed. And it's just a furious fight here between both sides. So we got a little bit of routing here, and I think that's some of the attacking Danelaw East Anglian infantry, and they're going to be fleeing off the battlefield. Most of the Anglian forces that were attacking the walls on the Welsh side have been thoroughly defeated, but over here the battle rages on as more and more Welsh reinforcements pour in against both the East Anglian Marauders and the Toyley Spear Guard, who are trying desperately to hold the line. So I'm moving in with another unit of East Anglian Marauders, because, again, I don't want this portion of the line to fail. If it does, well, then we're going to be in some serious trouble. But one important thing to note here is that there is a unit of the East Anglian General in here, as well as the Welsh General, and I think that the Wessex General ends up in here at some point as well. So this is 3 generals in one place. If we can kill these guys, then that's going to be a big blow to our enemies. Now, moving on over here, you can see the Welsh running into some stiff resistance. I've now moved up with my 2 reserve companies of Anglian Marauders. I'm going to be using them to pretty great effect here to hold back the Welsh and inflict some pretty serious casualties. I've also moved in with I think I'm moving in with some of my Berserkers and with another company of Bowmen, but I'm also able to support that position, which is why I wanted to fight where it was with these reserve companies of Danelaw Mailed Archers. And they're going to be firing into the flanks, actually. Some nice inflating fire here of the Welsh Mailed Swordsmen and all these other Welsh units, although unfortunately they're only able to get about this far, but they're not going to be able to get over here to where this big blob is, which is a really tempting target. So what I should be doing is trying to move these guys up, but again, I'm being a little bit cautious here. But support is already on the way in the form of the Toilu melee cavalry. My ally, the other Welsh faction, is going to be charging his way in there, looking like he's in wedge formation too, trying to break that line. This is going to be beautiful. Look at this. Ooh, a brutal charge there into the Welsh Mailed Swordsman. Does a fair amount of damage, but not quite as devastating as I think the other Welsh player wanted it to be. Got some Berserkers now, moving into this position, which is it's really important to note that this is a very carefully prepared position. It's because there is a lot of opportunities for flanking and things like that, especially given that the Welsh player has really just kind of pushed his way in one big blob, trying to just hammer his way through. But speaking of the Welsh player, they've actually run afoul now of the remaining Scottish forces, who are really having trouble at pushing these guys back. So they're just really not very effective against these fresh and elite hardened Welsh infantrymen. But let's take a look at what the Scottish are doing now. Now they've freed themselves from that unit of Wessex infantry, the Scots are now outside the walls and free to launch a very, very significant cavalry attack on the remaining attacking reserves. Now there's a few bowmen here and some mailed swordsmen as well, and there's also the Anglian general, who's now going to be forced, if he doesn't want to get destroyed by cavalry, he's going to be forced to move his way inside of the city. Now, there's also these reserve companies here of the select feared archers, which the English player has kept in reserve, but that is now going to put them. It's a prudent call to keep them out here like this, but also it does kind of put them in danger now of the Scottish cavalry. So it was a good call, but the Scots having this much cavalry is not something you can necessarily count on, and it is going to kind of work out nicely for the defenders. But moving on over to the Anglian side of things, the Anglians are still holding on their one small section of the wall here. We are slowly but surely beating them back, and over here another company of badly mailed spearmen are now free up to move in and try and support us. Let's pop back on over to my side of things. I think I've got my Berserkers finally into the fray here, and they're going to be pushing hard on the flank of these Welsh mailed swordsmen, and that's really, really significant. It's a big blob here of Welsh forces that are in danger of being absolutely annihilated. Meanwhile, their reserve forces that could potentially do something about it are being held in place by the victorious Scottish. Now, the Scottish aren't going to win this fight, but they are going to be able to hold these guys down long enough, and it is going to be pretty important. But let's see exactly what these Scottish cavalry are going to be up to. Now they've arrived on scene. There's a lot of panic here going in to the attacking forces. You can see some of these feared archers already beginning to waver just by the mere presence of these Scottish cavalrymen. This one unit of longbowmen now completely shattered. Looks like this company here getting run down by the Royal Cavalry. Probably not the greatest idea. That company's already shattered. They won't be coming back. But the Scots are just going for it. They're trying to get a piece of all these archers out here and really thin out the remaining reserves. Although they seem to be avoiding the Wessex General, which is I don't know. I would say it's a good idea with so many of these feared archers right now still on the battlefield, but yeah, it is always an option. But in any case, what do we got here? Some royal followers charging their way into, I think that's a Toilu spear guard. Yeah, it's definitely a spear unit, is it not? Nope, Welsh mailed swordsmen getting attacked in the rear, preventing more and more reinforcements from moving in to try and support the beleaguered Welsh inside the walls. Now, the Royal Thanes have been pulled out of this fight over here to try and go after some of my archers who are putting fire into the rear of the Welsh forces. I'm going to be using here a unit of my Berserkers who are now exhausted to wipe these guys right out. And I'm going to reform with my bowmen and try and shoot some of the feared archers as they move in and try and inflict as many casualties against them as possible. Now, the feared archers being committed to the fight against my Berserkers. Now, they might be out of ammunition, which I think is probably why this is happening. You can see them actually getting shot in the face by a lot of bow support there. And my Berserkers are going to find themselves completely surrounded, but these units have been weakened enough and the Berserkers are strong enough, they're going to be able to fight their way out of that. And meanwhile, that is more infantry that has been pulled off of this fight over here. And the Welsh, actually some of the men of Wessex, I think, are even more being pulled out. I think we're going to start to see a little bit of breaking here. And now we have numerical superiorities. This fight has really started to turn around. We've isolated our enemies well. A lot of the East Anglian forces now have been pushed back out of the city, and the East Anglia is basically completely out of this game henceforth. And now we're going to be able to shift over some of our reserve forces and begin to push our way through the enemy flank, and we're going to try and effect a pretty deadly surround. I brought up another company here of my Berserkers, because I can see my Anglian Marauders really starting to run out of steam here against this elite Welsh infantry, and using these guys to kind of outflank them and get into the rear is going to be pretty significant. Now, it looks like maybe I pulled them off here, and I'm going to try and go for some of these units over here, but I think this might be a desync. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I was using some of my Berserkers to try and drive these guys out of the city, but, maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, my Berserkers going after our unit here of the Danelaw Mailed Horsemen who came back from routing. They're going to rout these guys, and that's going to be all she wrote for them. Meanwhile, one of my units of Berserkers is completely out of control at this point, and I'm not going to be able to command them for quite some time. But, yeah, we seem to have the battle pretty well in hand. Over here, the Scots doing their best to try and break down the Toilu Spearguard, but they are so strong, so much stronger than any of the Scottish infantry, and very, very, very elite, very highly upgraded. 3 silver chevrons there, and that's not really anything the Scots can do about that. But they've held them down for a long time. They've done their job, which is really all that you can ask for them. And we got some of the Scottish horsemen coming in to try and aid us, but unfortunately the enemy still had control of the gatehouse, so they are going to get some oil dumped on their heads, which is very unfortunate for them. A lot of them are going to die at the gatehouse. And over here, got a unit of Berserkers charging into the rear of the remaining attacking forces. Look at those Berserkers charging there. They got a lot of moxie, just like waving things around like that. It's asking to be shot in the face, but they don't seem to care. They're Berserkers. And now the Welsh, I think, are in a lot of trouble, and that's going to be basically it for them. Now, over on this end, my East Anglian Marauders still losing quite decisively against the Welsh Mailed Swordsmen and some of the Toilu Spearguard in there as well. Again, these are two... I think it has to do with the gold chevrons that this unit has that's really helping them hold their ground for so long against my Anglian Marauders. Now, the Scottish infantry has been completely destroyed. Another company here of the Welsh Mailed Swordsmen moving in to try and reinforce this portion of the line. My Berserker's going to just absolutely go nuts on them and hopefully do reasonably well. But these guys are exhausted. Meanwhile, these guys are fresh. So even though the Berserkers are very strong, it's going to be pretty tough for them. Especially when backed up with a very elite company here of the Toilu Spearguard, even though they are at a little bit under half strength. But now there's more reinforcements. This is where things really start to collapse for the Welsh player. We've defeated all of the other remaining forces inside of the city, so now we're able to just swarm against these guys with our full strength. You can see just a very strong tide of defending forces that are still remaining. So there you go. Defenders 1-1. You can't say defenders never win. Now, I have to say that, yeah, it is a little bit one-sided. It was a good game. There's a lot of kind of tactical, strong decision-making I think from both sides. Also, of course, some mistakes as well that you can learn from. But really, a lot of my Thrones of Britannia games have been very one-sided. And I probably played about... I think I played 3 games that day. Yeah, that makes about sense. And, yeah, this is the closest one that I've seen. So yeah, I decided I would post it for you guys. And I think it's pretty good. In any case, Berserkers, Anglian Marauders, some remaining Welsh Toilu Spearguard, more and more forces pouring in. And they're going to be able to quite swiftly, I would say, overwhelm these remaining Welsh forces. My poor Anglian Marauders over here, a couple companies really doing their best against this this very elite unit of Toilu Spearguard, and they're holding their own for the most part. I think that really has to do with the numbers and the amount of support that these units have gotten. But I have to say, I was very impressed with the East Anglian infantry. A little bit of breaking here, of course, as I say that some of them begin to run, but they're at about 27 out of 160 men. So East Anglia right now, from what I've played, they are my favorite faction. I have been doing a little bit of campaign with them as well. Their campaign is very hard. I have not been successful at it. But in battle, I really enjoy these guys. And I think they've got a lot going for them.
It's a rout.
Toilu Spearguard coming in from the rear. Bam! Right into the Welsh Mailed Swordsmen and the attacking Toilu Spearguard. Beautiful hammer and anvil charge. Let's go ahead and let's fast forward things just a little bit here. Or if you guys prefer, we could do this. witness the last stand here of the men of Harlech.
Run them down!
And there you have it. I think... No, they've got one company of Totally Spear Guard over here. I think at this point the Welsh player just kind of gave up and left the game. So literally, Spear Guard, they could be flanking these guys right now, but honestly, it wouldn't really make like a difference because eventually they would all be overwhelmed. Yeah, Welshman swordsmen, despite their 3 gold chevrons, they're actually beginning to waver. It's really a credit that they've managed to fight this long against such overwhelming odds.
Incoming charge!
Gonna go ahead and we're gonna fast forward here just a little bit. And there you have it. Well, maybe the Welsh player was still there and he finally admitted defeat. Well, let's take a look at the post-battle screen and see exactly who was involved in this. So, Palas THC, that was the attacking Welsh player, did very well for himself. 1,200 kills there, nothing to sneeze at. Definitely the highest on his team by a long shot. He nearly doubled the other player's kills. And Skune was the Wessex player. Did his best. I think a lot of his some of his infantry had a lot of success. 230 on that one, really nice. I think the Royal Thane, one of these Royal Thane units here, maybe probably one of these two, was embroiled in a fight against the cavalry. They unfortunately got left behind. But a lot of these units, once the Wessex player pulled out of the assault on the Scottish were able to pull it back. I think he would have been able to completely wipe out the Scottish, which might have actually changed the course of this battle. That would have had a lot of implications. The Scottish would not have been there to hold up a lot of the Welsh infantry, for example, who would have been able to surround my infantry instead of the other way around. So that was a pretty significant mistake there, I think, on the part of Wessex, and yeah, it really cost their team in a pretty big way. East Anglian player getting a fair amount of kills. Really aggressive. I like the aggressive play. It didn't work out as well for him in this instance. A lot of his units not really getting all that many kills, but some of them did pretty well. And his bowmen really got the most kills. I think out of anything, they were in a good position outside there. They were supporting the advance of the attacking infantry and the siege equipment and stuff like that. So it was a good plan, I think. Daneline mailed horseman doing this one getting 41 kills. 41 kills, not bad. It was a good try with the cavalry, but unfortunately, it just my ally was on top of it, and it just didn't pay off for them. Well, let's take a look at the other side now. The Scottish player doing pretty well with one of the Sword Warriors, I gotta say. 143, that's pretty impressive. Maybe I didn't give them enough credit, but this one getting 8, not great. The Wolfhounds, I don't even know what they ended up doing. I kind of lost track of them a little bit. There's a lot of bigger things going on, but his cavalry did a lot of killing. Look at that, 106, 96, 88. Really paid off for him to bring the amount of cavalry that he did. His infantry, however, like the Alban Levy Spearmen and such, not all that great. The bowmen, they did their best. Looks like there was 3 of them instead of 2. That's my bad. Moving on to the Welsh player, the defending Welsh player, that is. Toylu Bodyguard doing really well for themselves. Valley Mailed Spearmen, a ton of kills. Look at this. This guy really did a lot of the work for our team. That Welsh infantry is just so nasty. 317, 316, 205, 261, very impressive. A lot of the bowmen doing fairly well for themselves as well. I think the lowest being 39, which is reasonably respectable. And then finally move on to my army. And my infantry did well as well. Not quite so well as the defending Welsh player, but Berserkers 168 kills, 110. You're nearly guaranteed this if you can get them into reasonably favorable engagements. And my East Anglian Marauders 208 on that one unit, 96. Nothing below 60 kills, which is really nice. So my infantry did a ton of work this battle. My Daneline Mail Archers kind of hit or miss. Almost 100 on 2 of the 4 units. The other one's got about 40, so that's not bad. And my Warlord's Companions didn't actually end up joining the fray. I tried to throw them in near the end, but they ended up, just not getting there in time. Didn't end up needing them, which is kind of surprising. But in any case, I hope you guys enjoyed this battle. If you guys want to see more Thrones of Britannia content, let me know, and I will make it happen for you, because I do enjoy this game. I know I did a little bit of nitpicking here and there, but that's just because this is my first battle, and some of you guys may have not actually bought Thrones of Britannia, and you may be kind of on the fence about that. So I want to be at least forthcoming with my opinions and trying to be as honest as possible, so you guys can make an informed decision. So despite my belly aching, I do actually really like the game. I think there's a lot of potential there. Sieges can be a little bit imbalanced, but the field battles that I've played have been pretty reasonable. So take it as you will. But in any case, my name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you'll join me for whatever comes next. Take care, everybody. Bye!